Good morning and welcome to the read-along of Undulation, Relieve Stiffness and Feel Young. My name is Anita Bozer. I'm the author, and I'm pleased to be doing this video series where we'll go through and we'll read through the book, and I'll give you what are my favorite parts and or the most important parts, which may or may not be the same thing. And we'll start with just my read through of some of the key pieces of each chapter, and then I'll lead some undulations and answer questions. That's the format that we'll try, at least for the first several, where each one is expected to be a half an hour or less, so nice and quick, and we'll see how it goes. Feel free to put in any comments or ask any questions. I'll try to keep track of them as I'm going through what I have planned. So here's the book, Undulation, Relieve Stiffness and Feel Young. This is a second edition. The first edition was done in 2007, and this one just is updated and with some different reorganization to make it easier for people to find the undulations that work for them. The first thing I'd like to read from is the foreword and introduction, just some excerpts. The foreword was written by Mary Bond. She is the author of The New Rules of Posture, and she has a new book out called Your Body Mandala, and it's a great book. And I just love her work, so I was so grateful when she decided to write a foreword for me, and I love what she has to say. And here's part of it. When we were children, free to improvise and play, our bodies expressed our curiosity about the world and about our place in it, with Gumby-like adaptability. As we stepped into adulthood and became focused on careers, responsibilities, and roles, our relationship with the world began to require less and less bodily movement. And I feel like that's just a key for why I wrote the book, is I found myself over time getting more still and more stiff. And there's this correlation between stillness and stiffness, and variety of movement is correlated with feeling limber and flexible. And that's what we lose when we get older. So that's what, with undulation, we're trying to regain. And that's the theme for today. The second piece is from Roger Golton. He's the author of The Owner's Guide to the Body. And his take on this is, think about all the different activities where spinal flexibility is essential. Without this flexibility, it's very difficult to fully function in the world. Things like putting on your socks or tying your shoelaces, lying down, sitting and standing, looking behind you while reversing the car, or even dancing are difficult without flexibility. So much of our daily activity depends on having a flexible spine. And undulation can be used throughout the body, but it really focuses on how do we keep our spine limber, because that is the focus for so many of our movements. The first chapter in the book is how to get the most out of undulation. I read this picture of hooray, just feeling so good by being able to move. And some of the points I'd like to make from this chapter is that there are so many reasons to keep moving. Feeling great, avoiding injury, and healing quickly are parts of it. When we're still, we don't heal as quick. And of course, we don't feel as good. But moving is also good for the brain. We think of maybe moving good for the joints, maybe it's going to help arthritis, but we're finding it actually helps memory as well. Things that are good for us on many different levels. Here are some reasons why undulation is so helpful. The human body is designed for a variety of movement. Undulation teaches you how to create variety on a regular basis rather than getting stuck in the rut of repetitive strain. And repetitive movements create injury in the body, whether it's something that happens quickly or something that builds up over time. And things have names like carpal tunnel syndrome, but also there's repetitive stress injury that doesn't have a name. It's just called feeling old. And undulation can help relieve that. We're also more likely to get injured when we are in unfamiliar positions. Undulation gives the brain a chance to experience out of the ordinary postures and develop intelligence and strength in those positions. A lot of times we think, oh, I hurt myself because I bent over. But Stefan Elgalit, he's a physical therapist, And he teaches a SMART core sequence that I love. And he pointed out that it's not just the bending over. People tend to get injured when they're bending over with a little twist, or they're reaching up in an odd position. And it's that unfamiliarity that is a reason that we get injured. So undulating puts our body in unusual positions so that the brain is used to being there and we're less likely to get injured. It's optimal to improve range of motion before developing strength. This is particularly true if you're injured. Building strength before range of motion is a good way for an injury to prolong or not heal. Stretching can develop strength at the end ranges, but it isn't so good for the nooks and crannies. Undulation is. And a lot of our exercise is contracting a muscle, contracting the bicep with weights maybe, or stretching. So it's one or the other. And those are helpful, but having fluidity of motion requires being able not to just be at the end ranges, whether it's your fingers or your arm, right? It's all that motion in between that keeps us fluid and flexible. There's an inverse relationship between how much your brain interprets sensations as pain, which is called nociception, and how much your brain understands where your body is in space, which is proprioception and interoception. Undulation improves interoception and proprioception by tuning into your body and trying to feel, okay, how do I get that vertebra to move? You're getting your internal awareness more in tune with what's happening inside, and that helps to reduce the increase of pain sensations. And last in this list is after injury, sometimes the nervous system misinterprets signals and tells muscles to contract when they don't need to. But if the joint can rest where it was injured and come out of this position slowly, the nervous system gets a chance to reset the signal. When you learn to let your body lead undulations, it will often find these positions. So when we're into free form undulation, which we may get into today or probably next time, you learn how to let your body start to feel where it needs to move. And it has the knowledge of how to get out of injury. Sometimes it just has trouble communicating with our brain. So body-led undulations a lot of times are the reason people feel better, is that they find these positions so that they can reset the nervous system. But the most important thing I want to talk about in all of the sessions and today is the most important part of the book, called the No Pain Guidelines, right here. No Pain Guidelines. Pain is signaling that something is wrong. And we've been told all our lives, no pain, no gain. And a lot of times that's not true. I'm not going to say it's never true, but a lot of times pain is trying to give you a message that you need to move differently. Now that doesn't mean to stop moving. Pain doesn't mean stop moving. And that's what happens a lot. Pain says do it differently. And that's what undulation teaches you, how to do it differently. But we're so set in that mindset of pain being something that's good for you that I want to keep reiterating to keep moving without pain. If you can move without pain, you'll have wider range of motion. If you keep moving with pain, your range of motion will shrink. Also, talking about cautions, pain is a caution. But if you're following along on this read along and you have a spinal condition like osteoporosis or spondylolisthesis, you might want to, no, you don't might, you do want to talk to your doctor and find out if they don't want you to move in certain ways. Because undulation is good for getting your body back in tune, but you want to make sure it's safe for you. So if you have a herniated disc, spondylolisthesis, osteoporosis, or another spinal condition, ankylosing spondylosis, do get your doctor's okay before you proceed. You can certainly listen along, but before you do any of the exercises, if you have a spinal condition, get an okay. So when to undulate? Ideally, you undulate throughout the day. It's not something that you have to set aside time for exercise. Times when I undulate is when I first wake up in the morning, the alarm goes off, buzz, 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 and I smack it. My arm's here, and I almost always smack it and end up just moving and try to spend the next 7 minutes, that's what I get in between buzzes, letting my body move in a way like a cat waking up or a dog waking up, feeling where I'm stiff and letting that movement lubricate my joints that have been still all night long. So that's one time. Anytime I'm waiting at the grocery store, for the coffee machine to warm up, for the tea kettle to boil, that's a good time to just start letting things go. Stoplights, that was when I first went back when I sold insurance and I learned to undulate. Stoplights used to really annoy me. So I use that time in the car. It's like, oh, okay. Instead of being upset it's a long light, I'm going to be happy it's a long light. Well, I just sit here and wiggle around in the car. Wiggling is what we did a lot of when we were kids. And that's what we were trained out of about the time we went to elementary school. And we don't allow a lot of wiggling. And if I was able to change the world, I would just allow more wiggling. That's my mission in life here. And think about when you were a baby, or if you've seen a baby, how much absolute fascination they have with their body, you know, looking at their hands like, wow, and what are all of the things I can do with my hand, or, you know, holding on to the toes, like what's everything that I can do with this foot? It can be as simple as that, which we'll get into some examples later. But trying to create that wonder of movement, staying in a pain-free range, ideally staying in a feels great range. What can your body do that feels great? And just keep doing more of it, and then there'll be more things that feel great. Well, let's go ahead and do some undulations. That's what I'm going to lead through next. Check here, see if I have any messages. Not yet. Feel free, if you want to ask a question, to go to the chat button along the bottom of the screen. There's a chat button, and you can click that button in order to send me a message so then I can answer the question. Okay, let's do some movements. First of all, just working with the hands here. I don't know, it just came to me. This is a lot of undulations are just made up. So working, a lot of times I talk about working one finger at a time. This is the Octopus Undulation. It's really great if you have arthritis in the hands. It's really funny on video here how much bigger my hand looks because it's closer to the screen, right? But feeling into all the spaces. Now I've been doing this now, I've been a structural integrator for 17 years. So I've been working on this for 17 years to keep my hands able to practice. And then just a couple weeks ago, took a dance class, and she had us just cup your hand and extend your hand. I was like, of all the movements I've been doing with my hands, somehow that wasn't one of them. So you're continually finding new motions as you explore. And then instead of thinking with the hand, just think of the wrist. What's everything you can do with your wrist? And notice the rest of my arm follows, right? So the wrist is moving, but not in isolation. And if you free yourself, the rest of your body will move along, staying in that feel-good range. Let's give this wrist a chance. And a little clunks in there. So I'm going to work through and just work, what can I do for the clunks to get smoother and softer? Thinking of the baby's curiosity. What else do babies do? Well, babies roll around a lot. As adults, we spend a lot of time sitting in a chair. And I'm not sure that the body's really designed to sit in a chair. So let's see if I can do this. If I have this set up right, I'm going to move myself down to the floor with the camera. Okay, there we go. So just getting on the floor is a different position for your body. You don't have to do a lot of movement here. Just being on the floor starts to stretch different things. And if you think of being a baby on the floor, notice that there's different motions available to you. Even if you're doing the same motion with your wrist, it's different here because you have different things available to you. One of my very favorite undulations, and I can't remember what chapter it's in the new edition, is rolling over. And it goes like this. It's simply lying down and rolling from side to side. Okay, I realize the camera's probably the greatest on this. But just rolling over uses a lot of core muscles, and you massage your spine on the way over. Sometimes you want to use your arm to bring yourself over. Or you can do it where you bring a knee over. So the knee comes up and carries you on over. Also, just sitting on the floor. Now, if you have tight hamstrings like I do, sitting on the floor for a long period of time can create some back issues. But just staying comfortable. So if I sit on the floor and let myself get stiff, that's one thing. But if I sit here and notice that I'm stiff and just move around, those are undulations. It doesn't have to be anything planned. All that wiggling, that feels good. You know, we can do the same thing with our feet that we did with our hands, just moving in different directions. And especially when you were a baby, like, oh, your toes were so fascinating, right? You could just move things, but you could also use your hands to move things around. Those are all possibilities for undulations. Okay, coming back again, let's see if there are any questions now. I'll take a second here to check that out. We'll see. Let me get the chair too. So these read-alongs are going to be very informal, as you can tell. Okay, looking good. No questions so far, at least in that format. I'm going to post these videos onto YouTube, onto the Undulation Exercise channel, and then I will link it to the Undulation Exercise page on Facebook. No questions, so that's great. A couple other points I'd like to make is that undulation can feel weird, right? Because it's outside the normal scope of how people move. And that's okay. I think we want to balance fitting in with feeling good, right? So maybe we can move society where we don't have to be so still for it to be normal. Maybe you can do a little wiggling around in the grocery line. And if somebody says, what are you doing? You could say, well, you know, I'm just taken the soreness out of my back. And then it's an education opportunity. Or maybe we only undulate on the slide, just when we're in our cars, or when nobody's looking. Oh, here we go. Here's a question. Oh, what undulations do I recommend for someone who is elderly after undergoing knee replacement surgery? I think it's really important, even though the focus a lot of times is on the knee, is to be undulating the joints just above and below any place of injury. So if you have a wrist injury, it's important to be getting more range of motion in your fingers, elbow, and shoulder, right? The places around it. So in terms of a knee, doing undulations for the hips and for the ankles. So when I was on the floor, I was showing, moving the ankle and the foot, trying to get the foot as flexible as the hand. That would be one I'd recommend. And I'd also recommend something for the hips, maybe tailbone penmanship, where you are on your hands and knees or sitting on an exercise ball and pretend that your tailbone is a laser pointer. And then you do great big cursive letters. I guess it's going to leave the younger kids out since they're not learning cursive anymore. We'll have to come up with something different for them. But for us, definitely moving the hips. Sorry, I'm not moving the camera to show you my hips. I'll figure out a way to do that in a future video. So hopefully that helps. There are others. I should also say that there's a whole chapter in here on low back and hips undulations, which might be what we're doing next week. Let's think. What do we do? No, we'll do the fundamentals next week, and the week after that we'll do low back and hips. And by I say week, I mean every other week. We're doing these every other week. So we will be doing those soon. If we don't have any other questions, I'd like to end with my final thought, which says, work toward getting a physical sense of your body as water. A fluid state is youthful and strong. Undulations build that flow within. It's your own internal fountain of youth. And here's a poem. What is harder than stone? What is more soft than water? Nevertheless, hard though rock may be, it is hollowed by the wave. That's by Ovid, who was a Roman poet in the 1st century BCE. So let's be fluid like the water so it can wash away the stiffness, the stony parts inside our bodies. Thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you next time when we will be going over the undulation fundamentals.